Yo! Time to up your gaming skills with some expert urban gameplay, gaming tips, tricks, and tutorials brought to you by Mad Peps.
Yo, what's good, peeps? Well, for this video, I wanted to take a look at 10 useful and basic tips I wish I kind of knew prior to playing Persona 5. Don't get me wrong, there's easily over 100 different tips out there, and I might only be scratching the surface with these tips, but I do feel that these would have definitely at least given me a great foundation to play in the game. So I will aim not to drop any spoilers throughout, but at least kind of give you some basic grounds on how to at least get some good grounding on the game, so make sure you keep it locked. Yo, first thing first, I want to say don't panic about wasting days. Some Persona 5 players might tell you that don't waste a single day or any time whilst playing Persona 5, but I would just say have as much fun and try not to stress over wasting days. It's definitely easy said than done, as I'm personally guilty of stressing over time, but I do think in your first playthrough, it might be worth just playing as you see fit. To be honest, when I first played the game, I felt that I was wasting a few days here and there by not really doing anything relevant, and therefore missed the opportunity to boost some of my stats. Whilst this is true that I probably did let a few valuable days slip by without doing much, I do think that half of the fun of the game is to kind of experience it the way that you want, as by trying to get 100% of stuff or making the most out of every second that the game presents can sometimes feel a little bit like a chore and get stressful and potentially make you not really enjoy the game as it's intended. Don't get me wrong, I'm a little hypocritical with this one, as even now I still do stress and try not to waste a single day, but that's just the kind of bad habits that I've picked up. Keeping it real though, whilst I am saying relax and enjoy the game as much as you have, don't waste all your free time that you get, as life will definitely become more difficult the more you progress through the game if you don't spend the time to build some of your character's attributes. As soon as you get the opportunity, one thing that I would suggest is to clean your room and buy a TV. It goes as a little bit of a double tip here, because obviously before you buy a TV, you must clean your room, as cleaning your room does allow you to do much things within those four walls. This will give you a few opportunities to boost your stats when indoors, so definitely one of the priorities in the game should kind of be to at least clean it up. And once that desk is all clear, I will say grab yourself a second-hand TV, as this will basically give you some extra stats if you spend your nights watching TV or various DVDs that you can rent, but be sure to return them after you finish with them, as you could end up being charged, even though I luckily haven't been yet. Another thing that cleaning your room gives you the opportunity to do is craft lockpicks. Trust me when I say lockpicks are very important in Persona 5, simply because palaces are literally full of chests. I've learned the hard way that I never really had enough lockpicks in my first palace, and to make matters worse, once a treasure has been retrieved from the palace, your target heart has been changed. You can no longer return to that palace, meaning that all those chests that you walked past will no longer be retrievable. So with that being said, I can only advise that when you do get a chance, do spend your evening crafting lockpicks, which will also up your proficiency stats and will give you the chance to grab all the collectibles within a palace. Whilst this tip probably goes for most of the companions that you do encounter throughout the game, one thing I will say is make sure you do spend time with Ryuji. Unfortunately, it does demand quite a bit of your free time, but I guess you do benefit from learning a bit more about him and therefore strengthening your bond with him. One of the main advantages that I found by strengthening my bond with Ryuji is that when you're in battle, he will be on hand to help with some of the follow-up attacks. Whilst on this topic, I would say make time for all the other confidants. I don't really want to single out anyone in particular that you should spend time with, as everyone has their benefits, but I must say that you should try and hover around the likes of Sojiro and Takemi. Building your relationships with both will prove invaluable when progressing through the game. Stopping by the clinics to work for Takemi will net you some bonus stat points, as well as access to a bunch of new medicines to use within the metaverse. Spending time with Sojiro offers similar benefits. He will basically teach you the art of brewing coffee that you can take into the metaverse. As far as I know, this coffee is one of the only ways to restore ESPE inside of a palace, so definitely worth learning this trick. Yo, another tip that I would mention is always make sure you've got a book on hand. The attention to detail that Persona 5 brings to the table is so phenomenal, and little things like carrying a book around is something that you shouldn't overlook. There is definitely a library in your school where you can borrow books from, or even a bookstore where you can purchase various books from, and what is great is that by taking the time to read books, you gain different stats depending on what you decide to read. Most books can be finished in a couple of sessions or so, so if you do borrow a book from the library, do remember to return it and get a new book. So if you're you're on the train or a spare moment here or there, you can definitely be sure to read your book and gain that more invaluable stats that you can get. In addition to this tip, I would say aim for top grades in class. Whenever the teacher asks you to answer a question in class or whether you're sitting in an exam, aim to get this right, even if you have to have a cheeky look up online for the answers, as this will definitely help boost your knowledge stats. Another element of Persona 5 which I think is extremely important is the fact that you always have to make sure that you do keep an eye on specific events which takes place on specific days, which can also help boost your stats each and every day, such as every Sunday and Thursday going to the spa bath gives that extra boost, or even every Sunday going to get juice in the train station, which can also help give you more boost in terms of stats. There are plenty of other things out there, so make sure you do keep a mental note. So for another example and a bonus one, I would say buy plants nutritions when you can, as taking care of the plants in your bedroom will improve your kindness. I think it happens every 16 days or so, I'm not too sure, but definitely do keep an eye on when it's time to replenish your plant. One thing not to overlook in Persona 5 is the ability to save consistently. This might sound a little bit of a hack, but I do think without it I would have gone insane, as there were so many times in the palace where I died, and if I forgot to save and advance far, you can only go back to the last save point unless you're fighting a boss or something. I learned the hard way, as literally neglected the save rooms, and then I had to go back a whole entire day after pretty much spending around 2 hours in a palace. And believe me, 2 hours in a palace is quite a long time if you haven't saved. Another thing I wish I kind of took into account prior to playing this game is not wasting SP on weak enemies, and kind of maybe using more use of my simple melee attacks on those weaker enemies. This to me came off the bad experience. It may sound like common sense to some of the more expert RPG gamers out there who will obviously have played other games where they know that this is definitely something which is quite essential, but for me who rarely ventures into turn-based games, I found myself wasting a lot of SP on low enemies in my first palace, as I was there testing out all the special moves on low enemies, and then when I actually ran into more difficult opponents, I was running low on SP and then started to struggle. One thing I would say is just be mindful when you first play this game to probably start with a melee attack to see how much damage it could be inflicted, and if need be then start to use your special skills or your skill points or whatever. Moving into the final tip, I would say make sure you bang out all the momentums. As much as it does feel like a chore at times going through them all, I did find this to be the best way to level up my character. Another handy tip is definitely keep an eye on the weather, as depending on what the weather is like will determine the frame of mind your enemies will be in. So for example, if it's piping hot outdoors, then it could mean that your enemies will be affected by a burning status, which will reduce their health, and if it's a high pollen count for example, then your enemies will be a little bit more drowsy and decrease the chance of them trying to attack you. Anyway peeps, thanks for watching my long/quick look into 10 tips that hopefully might help you out if you're thinking about buying this game or whether you've just started playing the game or so. As I mentioned, there's easily another 50 to 100 more essential tips out there that will definitely help you in becoming unstoppable in the game, but I guess half the fun is kind of finding these things out for yourself. I do hope you do find them useful, and I have tried my best not to drop any spoilers, and for those who've actually played this game and are far into the game, do feel free to let me know in the comments below some great tips that you find useful in the first 5 to 10 hours and maybe that I've kind of missed out. Definitely will certainly help out some of the newcomers to the game. If you enjoyed this video, do smash the like button and don't forget to subscribe to the channel, and until next urban gameplay video, we definitely say peace out peeps.
Make sure you hit that like and subscribe button for more cool urban gameplay videos.